Alright, here we go. The Lich King is a multi-phase encounter with a 15-minute enrage timer. You will need 2 tanks, 4 to 6 healers, and the rest DPS. In phase 1, tank Arthas near the edge of the platform. DPS slam full single target into the boss and ignore all adds. You may optionally use Bloodlust here. Have an off-tank pick up Shambling Horrors near the raid facing away. The Lich King will use Necrotic Plague on a random player. Necrotic Plague jumps to the nearest unit to win Decurse. So have this player run next to the Shambling Horror and decurse the ability, transferring the dot to the ad. Do this every time. This debuff will persist, stacking in damage every 15 seconds or when the target dies. The second Shambling Horror will spawn while the first is still active. When the first ad dies with this debuff, it will transfer to the second ad. These ads have a Shockwave and Enrage. Hunters must use Tranquilizing Shot to dispel the Enrage. A rogue with Anesthetic Poison will also suffice. On Heroic, they Frenzy at 20% health. These ads can also be stunned. Your raid will phase the boss at 70% before seeing a third Shambling Horror. Once the second ad dies and the debuff transfers to the tank, decurse your tank away from the raid to permanently remove the debuff. Ghouls will also spawn. Ignore them completely. Either tank can pick them up and they will die to passive cleave. Healers immediately top off the raid when Arthas uses Infest. Priest shields are especially useful. Have your main tank use powerful defensives towards the end of the phase. Each time Necrotic Plague gains a stack, the Lich King's damage increases. Tanks will struggle to survive beyond 20 stacks. On Heroic, the Lich King will spawn Shadow Traps. Don't stand in them. At 70% health, Arthas runs to the center of the room and does big bad AoE. Stand at the edge of the platform to outrange this damage. 3 Raging Spirits spawn this phase as priority kill targets. Have your main tank pick up the first one and the off tank pick up the next 2. These ads have a frontal that silences, so face them away from the raid. Any remaining Shambling Horrors from the first phase should be dead before the second Raging Spirit spawns. Assign a couple range DPS to kill the Ice Spheres that spawn towards the center of the room. They don't have much health. After 1 minute, phase 2 begins. Arthas destroys the edge of the platform, so be sure to run in before then. Arthas retains Infest and gains the abilities Soul Reaper, Defile, and Summon Valkyr. Tanks taunt swap during Soul Reaper. Valkyr scoop people up and yeet them off the platform. Kill the Valkyr before this happens. On Heroic, Valkyr have 3 times as much health, but drop players at 50% health instead of when killed. Some raids choose to lust on one of the sets of Valkyr. The raid should stack offset of the center of the room when a new set of Valkyrs spawn, such that they have the furthest distance to cover and move in the same direction. The Lich King will also use Defile on a random player, spawning a black pool that grows if people stand in it. Being spread out makes this ability easier to manage. The target of Defile has a few seconds to move away from the raid before dropping the puddle. Spreading for Defile and stacking for Valkyr can lead to some awkward overlaps. Deal with it as best you can. Near 40% health, finish off any remaining Valkyr and push the boss to 40% to enter the second phase transition. This transition phase is identical to the first, but 4 Raging Spirits spawn instead of 3. Have the off tank pick up the first ad, the main tank gets the second, then the off tank gets the third and fourth ads. You may optionally use Bloodlust here. You will enter phase 3 with 1 or 2 Raging Spirits left alive. Focus them down as a priority. Arthas retains Soul Reaper and Defile, and gains 2 new abilities. The first is Vile Spirits. Have the main tank bring Arthas to the edge of the room. When Vile Spirits spawn, have the entire raid move to the opposite side. Have a hunter drop Frost Trap between the spirits and the boss, and position your off tank between the raid and the spirits to intercept them. Vile Spirits move towards a target, exploding on impact. They can be taunted and slowed. If your off tank is still dealing with Raging Spirits, have a Shadow Priest with Dispersion or a Paladin with Bubble intercept the ads. Run back and forth across the platform, repeating this movement for each new set of ads. The Lich King will also use Harvest Soul on a random player. This transfers them inside Frostmourne, where they need to help an NPC kill an ad. DPS players kill the ad and interrupt its cast, healers keep the NPC alive. On Heroic, Harvest Soul is now used on the entire raid, similarly sending them into Frostmourne, but this phase is a bit different. The raid must move together to avoid bombs that fall from the sky, and kill spirits along the way before they reach your raid. After 40 seconds, the raid is teleported back up and the fight continues. Push the boss to 10% health, at which point the Lich King uses Fury of Frostmourne, signaling the end of the fight. After a couple minutes of RP, the Lich King becomes attackable once more. Kill Arthas to finish the encounter.